The year their parents died, the family company was on the verge of collapse. I cut ties with Win at her lowest point. 5 years later, her company went public. Against all odds, she made it. She became the powerful, untouchable CEO Win, someone the entire business world looked up to. When a reporter asked who she was most grateful for during her rise to the top, her eyes turned ice cold. Her voice dripped with pure, unfiltered contempt. "The brother who abandoned me for money. Actually, no, he is not my brother anymore. How is he doing?" That single question sparked a massive nationwide manhunt for CEO Win's lost brother. The reward was a staggering $10 million. But no matter how hard they searched, they never found me. All they found was the diary I wrote right before I died. When the reporter handed it to Win, she froze. Her hands trembled violently as she took it. But in the very next second, pure anger surged through her, and she threw it straight into the trash. "Is this Nean's latest stunt, or did you stage this pathetic act just for ratings?" The reporter shook his head, stepping forward to carefully pick my diary back up. "This is truly your brother's diary, written before he died. As for his body, it has already been cremated. No one ever came to claim him, so the crematorium handled everything." Before he could even finish the sentence, Win shot to her feet in absolute fury. "Don't think this little act of his will ever make me forgive him. You go tell Nean that I already have a real brother now. Nean means nothing to me. Even if he's dead, I don't care." The reporter hesitated, holding the worn journal. "Then, what would you like us to do with this diary?" Win let out a bitter, cold laugh. "Read it. I want to hear how well he can lie. Dear diary, hello? From now on, please take good care of me. You're the only one I have left. Let me tell you what happened today. When I tried to run away with the expensive gifts my family gave me, Win caught me. I didn't want to face her. I just wanted to slip away quietly into the night, but she was so desperate. She grabbed my hand and begged me to stay, crying that I was her only family left. My heart shattered for a moment, but I forced my face to stay cold and violently pushed her back. The company is bankrupt. Can you still buy me the high-end motorcycle models I like? I spend money like water. Can you even afford to keep me? I'd rather find a rich woman to take care of me than pinch pennies with you every day. And I happen to know one." Win panicked instantly. She demanded to know who it was, begging me not to get scammed, swearing she would work herself to the bone, earn millions, and give me back the luxurious life of a rich young master. But you know what I said? I want to be scammed. What's it to you? If you ever become capable enough, if you can actually afford to support me, I'll come back and be your good little brother again. But when will you ever have that kind of money? Someone as proud as Win, she actually dropped to her knees, begging me not to abandon her. Pretty heartbreaking, right? I had to turn away. While she wasn't looking, I quickly wiped the tear falling from the corner of my eye. Then I slapped her. I told her to stop clinging to me, to stop holding back my future. I even threatened to cut all ties with her forever. That slap left Win completely stunned. She stood there frozen, watching helplessly as I dragged my luggage away. "I'm truly sorry, Win. I know that must have cut you straight to the bone." Reporter Lenny reads through the entry, taking a slow, heavy breath. He can't hide his shock. He never expected CEO Win to depend on her brother with so much devotion. But as the camera pivots to Win, her face is an absolute fortress. Cold. Unmoving. Ruthless. Without a single trace of emotion, she dismisses it all. "I regret it. I regret ever showing him an ounce of kindness. I raised an ungrateful dog. Dear diary, I'm back. Today, I went to another hospital for more tests. How I desperately wish that initial diagnosis was a mistake. If it were, I could run straight back to Win, apologize, and swallow my pride, and I know she'd forgive me just like she always did. But life doesn't hand out miracles." The doctor looked at me, his expression grim. "Where are your parents?" "Son, this is terminal liver cancer. You need to be admitted right this second." I didn't fully grasp what it all meant, but the terrifying weight of death made tears stream down my face anyway. I was only 18 years old. With a look of deep pity, the doctor handed me an admission form. I hurried over to the billing kiosk, but the moment I saw those impossible figures on the screen, I silently backed away and walked out. "It's fine. I still had Win's bank card linked to my account. It's better if I save her every penny. I'm dying soon anyway. Why waste what she's destroying herself to earn?" Ever since that dirty contractor ran off with all the funds, our family's construction project collapsed into total financial chaos. Our parents drove themselves to absolute exhaustion trying to keep things afloat. Then came that fatal business dinner, a violent car crash, and just like that, they were both gone. The entire world collapsed onto Wynn's shoulders. I had to stand there and watch as vicious debt collectors raided our home, stripping away every single item of value. And Wynn, just to secure hundreds of thousands from my overseas tuition, she got down on her knees and bowed her head, begging those ruthless creditors for a chance. But in the end, the bank repossessed everything anyway. To clear those overwhelming debts, Wynn begged and borrowed from anyone who would listen. She drank until her stomach bled, collapsing into a hospital bed. But she had no time to recover, and no money to pay for care. The second she woke up, she discharged herself and went right back out to the streets, bowing her head and humbling herself before anyone who might give her a shot. I broke down, begging her to just stop and rest. She just gave me a faint smile and told me she was made of iron, that nothing could break her. Wasn't she so foolishly brave? I wanted so badly to carry that weight with her. I wanted to tell her I didn't care about studying abroad anymore, that I wasn't that spoiled little young master anymore. I was ready to throw it all away, work double shifts, and take care of her, but right at that exact moment, I was diagnosed with the most expensive disease imaginable. Dear Diary, do you think I'm useless, too? Reporter Lenny's eyes fill with tears as he looks up from the page. It turns out your brother had a heartbreaking reason for walking away. Terminal liver cancer at just 18, it's devastating. Wynn lets out a razor-sharp, mocking laugh. What a masterclass in getting sympathy. Reporter Lenny, don't let his sob story fool you. Nen has always been a master manipulator. When he was little, he faked a sprained ankle to skip school. Our whole family panicked and rushed him to the hospital. His acting has always been elite. Maybe so. Last night, the pain refused to let me sleep again. It's consuming me faster now. Without heavy painkillers, surviving a single day is practically impossible. But my pockets are completely empty, and a much colder reality is staring me down. If I can't pay rent, my landlord will throw me into the street. I'm actually about to face what Wynn and I used to joke about, sleeping under a cold bridge. Back then, it sounded like a brave adventure from a martial arts novel. Now that I'm standing on the edge of it, I'm utterly terrified. With no options left, I listed the few priceless gifts our parents gave me on an online shop. They were the only pieces of my past I had left. But every time a buyer reached out to finalize the sale, I made up an excuse to back out. The truth is, I just couldn't bring myself to sell my family. In the end, completely broken by the agonizing pain and starvation, I caved. I withdrew $500 from Wynn's card. Wynn, I'm so sorry. I spent your hard-earned money again. It's funny how fast real hunger cures a picky appetite. When I was on the verge of passing out from exhaustion, I spotted a dirty, half-eaten bun sitting in a trash bin. I picked it up and ate every bite. Honestly, it didn't taste bad at all. Extreme poverty strips away the spoiled young master overnight. I used the rest of the cash to buy a cheap bag of steamed buns, a jug of tap water, and a small pack of basic painkillers from the pharmacy. The tiny bit left over, I saved for shelter. My professor called again today, practically begging me to come back. He said someone with my scores shouldn't just throw their life away. Terrified that he would worry Wynn, I lied and told him I was officially dropping out, but he reached out to her anyway. A moment later, my phone lit up. It was Wynn. Her voice was ice-cold, sharp enough to cut. Nean, I know you want nothing to do with me. I don't care what rich woman you've sold yourself to, but throwing away the education you were always so proud of. Is this really the son Mom and Dad raised? It had only been 10 days since I last heard her voice, but it felt like a lifetime of distance had built up between us. I clamped my hand over my mouth to smother my quiet sobs, but the tears poured out anyway. Wynn, I miss you so much. Hearing only silence on my end, her patience snapped completely. Keep acting like this, and I promise you, I will cut you out of my life forever. The line went dead. I sat in the dark and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. Dear Diary, today I'm going to block Wynn's number forever. Then, I'll go finish my official withdrawal forms. Reporter Lenny notices that Wynn seems strangely frozen, her eyes staring blankly at the floor. Pausing quietly, he takes a slow breath and discreetly wipes a tear from the corner of his eye before turning the page. Dear Diary, I moved today. The old place was 50 a night, a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I spent the entire day dragging myself through the city on swollen feet until I finally found a cramped room in a quiet urban village on the south side. 30 a night. It's a tiny room crammed with 4 bunk beds. Directly across from me is a shady, intimidating older man. One look at him sent a wave of fear straight through me. Trembling, I glanced toward a young woman sitting on the bunk below mine for comfort. Her name is Sunny. Seeing how terrified I was, she looked up and gave me a gentle, reassuring smile. "Relax, kid, she really is good." That night, I took my medicine and finally drifted into a peaceful sleep. I had the most beautiful dream. Mom and Dad were still alive, taking Win and me to Disneyland. Knowing how obsessed I was with Iron Man, Win stood in line for hours under the burning sun just for me. The moment she reached the front, she called out my name with a huge smile and pushed me right into the arms of the Iron Man performer. I finally got to meet my hero. I was grinning so wide my eyes squeezed into tight crescents, while Mom, Dad, and Win stood nearby, watching me with so much love. But the second I turned around after taking the photo, they vanished. The bright, golden sky turned pitch black in an instant. Terror seized my chest. I ran through the dark, screaming their names until my voice broke, but nobody answered. I jolted awake in the dead of night, drenched in a cold, shivering sweat. Sunny was sitting nearby, looking at me with deep concern. "You okay, kid?" I could only shake my head, tears burning my eyes. When she asked why a fragile kid like me was hiding out in a dangerous dump like this, something inside me broke, and I spilled everything. I don't even know why, but I trusted her completely. When I finished, she didn't offer empty pity. She just pulled me into a tight, protective hug. Her arms were so warm, it felt like having a family again. Sunny confessed that she was an orphan. After getting adopted, her foster father turned her life into a living nightmare of abuse. Unable to take the pain any longer, she ran away into the streets. She had been fighting to survive completely on her own since her early teens, crossing paths with the darkest sides of society and learning every trick in the book to protect herself. "Lil man, someone as soft and innocent as you needs a bodyguard like me around," she smirked. Sunny became my savior. She taught me how to survive on absolute zero. She showed me how to scout supermarket aisles for expired items. Some stores would hand over a quick cash refund just to avoid trouble, while others would let you take the food for free. She taught me how to gather discarded vegetable scraps behind market stalls, trim away the decayed parts, and blanch the rest. It wasn't pretty, but it kept the starvation at bay. She even dragged me along to do heavy odd jobs. In just one afternoon, we earned $60 together. Staring at those crinkled bills in my hands, a surge of pride washed over me. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt like I wasn't just a useless burden. I thought to myself, if I could pull in this much money every day, maybe I could save up a decent pile of cash to leave behind for when after I die. The thought was so bittersweet that I actually burst out laughing. Sunny stared at me like I had completely lost my mind. "You made $60 and you're this thrilled?" She flicked my forehead playfully. "Man, you really have zero ambition, kid." Aside from keeping a constant, watchful eye on that shady man lurking across the room, our nightly routine was a desperate race against the clock, washing up and diving under the blankets before 10 p.m., when the landlord ruthlessly cut off all power and running water. Yet, despite the crushing poverty, living there with Sunny brought me a strange kind of happiness. "The lights are about to go out. Good night." Reporter Lenny pauses, noticing something extraordinary. As he read the part about the creepy man in the room, Seo Win, the woman supposed to be made of ice, clenches her fist so tightly her knuckles turn ghost white. A flicker of doubt crosses Lenny's mind. Maybe Seo Win doesn't hate her brother half as much as she claims. Dismissing the thought as mere wishful thinking, he takes a quiet breath, turns the page, and continues reading. "Dear Diary, I've moved out again. Sunny caught me coughing up a pool of thick blood yesterday. Even though she barely had a penny to her name, she flew into a complete panic and forcefully tried to drag me to a hospital. Up until that moment, I had kept my terminal cancer a complete secret, lying that I had simply run away after a fight with my family. But after she saw all that blood, I couldn't hide it from her. Maybe I really am cursed. I refused to drag Win down, and there was no way I was going to ruin the life of this fierce, kind-hearted woman I had just met. Sunny once shared her dream with me, saving every penny to open her own auto repair shop so she could finally have a real place to call home. "I'm not letting someone your age just die," she snapped, her eyes burning with fierce determination. I gave her a soft nod, but deep down, I was already whispering goodbye. Early the next morning, while she was fast asleep, I quietly gathered my few belongings and slipped away into the cold dawn. I'm crouched on the pavement writing this, my feet completely numb. Let me pause and rest for a second. My body is falling apart so much faster now. A moment ago, a violent coughing fit hit me, and blood spilled straight onto the ground. Strangers walking past stopped and stared in sheer horror, backing away, pointing, and whispering under their breath. I squeezed myself into a tight ball, waiting for the agony to pass. When I finally lifted my head, I saw dark blood drops splattered across these pages. I tried frantically to wipe them away, but the stain only smeared deeper into the paper. I'm so sorry, dear diary. I didn't mean to get you dirty. The pain just completely overpowered me. While I was huddled there trying to catch my breath, a woman in faded, worn-out clothes walked up and forced a few crumpled bills into my trembling hands. I tried to push it back, but she just dropped the cash and walked away. I pulled myself up and quietly followed her. She walked over to her husband, a disabled man holding their tiny baby in his arms. She gently tucked her hair behind her ear, leaned down to kiss the baby's soft cheek, and began calling out to passers-by to buy her fruit. I stood at a distance, watching them for hours. By nightfall, the bitter cold had turned half my body completely numb. More than half her fruit was still sitting there unsold. She let out a tired sigh, but her husband softly reassured her. As they began packing up their stall, placing the baby down in a small basket, I pulled my hat down low and moved in fast. Without her noticing, I quietly tucked the money back into the folds of the baby's clothes. Wynn lets out a cold, venomous laugh. Not bad writing. I almost felt something. Did his sponsor cut him off, so now he's writing cheap fiction for cash? Reporter Lenny stopped reading. I look pathetic sitting here wasting my time on this. If he's faking his death because he's too cowardly to face me, then fine. I'll treat him like he's dead. With those final, freezing words, Wynn stood up and walked off set without looking back. The interview ended, but the footage blew up online, going instantly viral. Internet sleuths dug up medical records revealing that 5 years ago, right after her brother walked out, Wynn had been regularly attending therapy. The public quickly realized that the sudden death of her parents paired with her brother's bitter betrayal had spiraled her into severe depression. Later, as her company rebuilt itself, she adopted a new brother. Meanwhile, the diary ignited an absolute war on social media. Millions dragged Nean's name through the mud, accusing him of faking his death for clout and cursing him for abandoning his sister at her lowest point, leaving her to suffer through bankruptcy alone. Now that she's made it, he shows up playing the victim and fishing for sympathy. He even resorted to writing a tear-jerking diary like this. Too bad for him, when already moved on to a new brother. Word on the street was she rented out an entire theme park for his 18th birthday and dropped a limited edition sports car on him, spoiling him rotten. But across the internet, doubt began to brew. Maybe there's more to this story. This diary feels too raw, too painful. Could someone writing like this really just be chasing clout? Regardless of whose side people were on, everyone was dying to know what came next. Chasing skyrocketing ratings, the TV station pressed Wynn again, begging to air the rest of the journal. Whether out of icy indifference or pure disgust, nobody knew, but Lin E delivered Wynn's cold verdict. The diary belonged to the network now. Publish it or burn it, she couldn't care less. Lin E made sure to add one final sting. Wynn made it clear she only had one brother, and his name was Lin E. Online trolls celebrated her coldness. Let's see Nean keep up this fake drama now that she completely shut him out. With the green light secured, the station launched a live stream titled Nean's Diary Before Death. Reporter Lenny stood before the camera, his expression dark and heavy. Like all of you, I haven't read ahead. With CEO Wynn's blessing, I'm opening this for the world today. Please, go easy in the comments. In seconds, hundreds of thousands swarmed the stream, shattering 1 million viewers in under a minute. Millions held their breath as Lenny's hand rested on the cover. Meanwhile, in Wynn's high-rise executive suite, Lenny watched her with an unreadable look, hesitating before whispering. CEO Wynn, the stream is live. Wynn didn't even raise her eyes from her documents. I told you. I don't want to hear another word about him. Reporter Lenny took a quiet, heavy breath and flipped the page. Dear Diary, today I found a dog. I tried so hard to walk away, but the poor creature kept dragging its mangled leg behind me, crying in pain. I knew I was too weak to care for another living thing, So I hardened my heart and forced myself forward. But 2 steps later, I broke down and turned back. The second I lifted it into my arms, the little yellow dog's eyes sparkled with hope, licking my palm endlessly. I let out a bitter sigh. It saw right through me. It knew I was a total softie. I named him Lucky, praying he'd get the long, peaceful life I was robbed of. I rushed him to a vet, but the basic checkup drained every cent I had left. The doctor delivered the blow. Emergency surgery would cost $2,000. Without it, Lucky wouldn't make it. Clutching Lucky tight against my chest, I looked at the vet and whispered, "Can I bring him back in a few days?" "No delays," the vet said firmly. "Tomorrow, or it's too late." I stumbled out of the clinic in a total fog, sinking onto a freezing curb with Lucky in my arms. I looked into his eyes and sighed. "You're so foolish. With a world full of rich people, you had to pick me? A guy with 1 foot in the grave? I could accept that, but I don't have a single penny to my name. Where am I supposed to find 2,000? The little guy didn't understand a single word I said. He just wagged his tail furiously, celebrating the simple fact that he had finally found a home. Looking down at his pure, innocent joy, my vision blurred with tears. I was completely backed into a corner. I stumbled over to an ATM, my hands trembling violently as I reached to withdraw $2,000. "This is the last time, Win. I swear this is the absolute last time I'll take a penny from you." Card declined. Win had officially cut it off. My heart plunged straight into the void. But really, I was the one who told her I wanted nothing to do with her. She owed me nothing. I had promised myself I'd never reach out again, but with Lucky's life on the line, I had no choice. I swallowed my pride, unblocked her number, and dialed. The line rang and rang. Just as I thought she was going to ignore me, she picked up, her voice sharp with bitter scorn. "Having second thoughts? You blocked me, and now you're the one calling first? Didn't you say you wanted nothing to do with me, or did your rich lifestyle run out of cash?" Her words slashed straight through me before I could even draw a breath. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, but Lucky whimpered softly in my arms, reminding me why I was enduring this nightmare. "Send me 2,000. I rasped out flatly. Dead, suffocating silence fell over the line, followed by Win's quiet, furious trembling. "You don't call me for weeks. You don't ask if I'm eating, if I'm okay, or if I miss you at all. All you care about is money. That's all I am to you, isn't it?" I bit down on my lip until the sharp, metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. I forced it down and answered coldly, "Yes." Win choked back a tear, her voice turning to ice. "Fine. You want money? I'll give you everything I have. Happy now? I should have known better. Nean, you really have no heart. From this moment on, you are no brother of mine." The line went completely dead. My knees buckled. I collapsed onto the freezing street and threw up violently, clutching Lucky against my chest. Blood. There was so much dark blood spilling onto the pavement. Lucky went wild with terror, whimpering as he desperately licked my face over and over. I gently stroked his fur. My body was going completely numb, but the hollow, tearing agony in my heart was unbearable. I checked my phone. Win had transferred $20,000. But when I tried to send the rest back, the transaction failed. She had already blocked me forever. I buried my face in Lucky's fur and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I knew then that Win was truly gone. I had wanted her to hate me, to cut me off, but now that she actually had, the grief was destroying me. "Lucky, we have no home anymore." The live chat erupted into absolute chaos. Thousands of comments flooded the screen per second. Viewers were losing their minds. Some still called Nean a liar, but millions were completely heartbroken, begging to know what happened to Lucky. Shaken by the sheer emotion in the room, reporter Lenny wiped his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to the next entry. "Dear Diary, it's been a while. Good news, Lucky made it through surgery. He's completely healthy now. The only thing is, he's glued to my side. Wherever I step, he trots right behind me. He even curls up against my feet when I sleep. The bad news, my illness has gotten worse. I don't know how much time I have left, maybe less than a month. When I buy painkillers in bulk now, the pharmacy staff stare with heavy suspicion, treating me like an addict. Luckily, I still carry my medical report. A little desperate pleading usually softens them up, but the medicine is completely losing its effect. Just to steal a few hours of sleep, I have to take higher and higher doses. Yesterday, While handing out flyers, my body completely gave out and I collapsed onto the concrete. Lucky went wild with terror, frantically licking my face and barking until a kind stranger carried me to the emergency room. Another crushing bill. When I added it all up, I hadn't just lost my day's pay, I spent far more than I ever earned. The doctor looked at me with a grave face. "You need to be admitted immediately. We need to contact your family. At this rate, you might not have much time." He didn't need to finish the sentence. I mumbled a quick lie and escaped fast. Hospitalization was a luxury I couldn't afford. Outside, I found Lucky waiting. The second he spotted me, he sprinted into my arms. But that night, the excruciating pain returned. Lucky sensed my torture, desperate yet helpless, pressing close to me, licking my skin as if he were on the verge of tears. I weakly stroked his head. "It's okay." The next second, I was bolting to the bathroom, hunched over the toilet, heaving violently. It felt like my body was trying to empty out everything left inside me. I suffered in the dark until the world went completely black. I woke up to Lucky frantic, licking my face. The mirror nearly terrified me. Hair thinning, skin yellowed. The soft, round cheeks I used to have were now so gaunt my jaw stuck out like a razor. Wynn used to tease me, saying my baby face made me look harmless. Looks like this face really will stay this way forever. Staying young isn't a gift. I wanted to grow up slowly, stay by Wynn's side, watch her build her life, fall in love, and find happiness. I washed my face, patted my sunken cheeks, and gave myself a quiet pep talk. There is one bright side. Wynn can't see me like this. She'd be horrified. I choked down my painkillers and finally drifted off, only to wake up at midnight burning with a violent fever. Dear diary, it hurts so much. I miss Wynn. I miss her so deeply. I just want to see her one more time, even from a distance. That's not too much to ask, is it? I put on a hat, a face mask, and a black coat, trying to look cool like a spy. Lucky came right alongside me. I promised myself, just one look from afar, and I'd leave. Dear diary, I'm back. Wynn looks as sharp and beautiful as always. Taller, maybe, but so much thinner too. I told myself to take one look and walk away, but she didn't look happy. Wynn used to smile so easily. Without thinking, I quietly followed her through the crowd. I had no idea why Wynn was going to a hospital, or why she was seeing a therapist. After she left, I asked her doctor. He refused at first. Patient confidentiality, he insisted. But after I fell to my knees and begged him, he let out a heavy sigh and shared what he could. Wynn is sick. Seriously sick. Our parents' deaths shattered her. My walking away destroyed whatever was left. She blames herself completely, believing she was never good enough, that she had utterly failed to protect me, and that her own shortcomings drove me away. Because of that crushing guilt, Wynn had even begun harming herself. I sobbed uncontrollably. Then, through the streaming tears, I started to laugh hysterically. She is so foolish. I was the useless one. I was the parasite dragging her down. Wynn is the absolute best sister in the entire world. She used to save up her pocket money for an entire year just to buy me one extravagant birthday gift. She would beat up every bully who ever touched me at school so badly they couldn't stand, gladly taking the punishment afterward. After our parents died, she shouldered the entire mountain of debt alone, carrying that impossible weight while still doing everything to give me a comfortable life. How could I ever look down on her? Reporter Lenny suddenly pauses, holding the diary up to the live camera lens. Look closely at this page. Lenny's voice trembles, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Beyond the handwriting, you can see deep, warped watermarks. These are dried tears. He must have wept for hours. His pain literally soaked through this entire page. Taking a slow, shaky breath, Lenny continues reading. I really am useless. I can't do anything right. I watched Wynn walk right past me today, and I didn't even have the courage to reach out. For a fraction of a second, our eyes met, but she looked right through me. Of course she did. The way I look now, I barely look human. She's better off never seeing me again. I don't want Wynn to grieve. Dear diary, I've made up my mind. Rather than dying slowly in excruciating agony, I'm going to end it myself. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? The illness must be rotting my brain. I keep talking to you, talking to Lucky, as if either of you can answer. But what about Lucky? I can't just abandon him. I want to give Lucky to Wynn so he can keep her company and be loved. Aren't I clever? Then I remembered. tomorrow is my birthday. I'll hold on for one more day. I don't want to die on my birthday. Last year for my 17th, Mom and Dad had a custom, limited edition gaming setup built just for me. When I unwrapped it, Dad clapped me on the shoulder, laughing with so much pride, telling me I was the coolest kid around. Win gave me a mechanical watch, its glass face catching the light, clearly costing a fortune. All of those expensive gifts were seized long ago by debt collectors. All I have left are the small, worthless gifts that didn't cost a thing, the ones I carry everywhere. Even when I was starving to death, I couldn't bring myself to sell a single one. When I sleep, I squeeze the stuffed brown bear Mom gave me when I was 8. Holding it feels like holding her again. Mom, Dad, and Win once promised they would throw me the grandest, most unforgettable celebration for my 18th birthday, a proper party for their little prince. But now the only one beside me is Lucky. I hold him tight. He is the only warmth I have left in this world. Lucky senses my fading strength, furiously licking my hands and face with his warm tongue, desperately trying to comfort me. It tickles a little. I let out a soft laugh and kissed the top of his head before carrying him toward a nearby bakery. I wanted to buy myself a birthday cake. I used to turn my nose up at the massive, 3-tier cakes our parents ordered, but now, after starving for so long, my mouth watered just looking through the glass. Staring at the price tags, hundreds of dollars, I froze, unable to move. The clerk walked over, her voice sharp and impatient. "Are you buying or not? Move along if you're just standing there." She glared at Lucky in my arms and scoffed. No pets allowed. I had just watched a wealthy customer walk in carrying a dog. But Lucky looked scruffy because I couldn't afford a grooming session. Swallowing my humiliation, I apologized repeatedly and ordered the absolute cheapest item, a tiny $20 chocolate cupcake. I carried Lucky to a park bench, sat down, and closed my eyes. Without candles, I walked through the motions in my mind and made my wishes. I hope Lucky stays safe and healthy. I hope Win achieves all her dreams, lives a long life, and stays happy forever. I opened my eyes and shared the cupcake with Lucky. He ate with pure joy, celebrating my coming of age with me. I was starving, but after just 2 tiny bites, my stomach convulsed. I had to put it down and threw up everything on the grass. Afterward, I took Lucky to a pet salon for a full bath, spending $200. The owner smiled, saying he had never met such a gentle, well-behaved dog. I took Lucky back, clean and sweet-smelling, and buried my face in his soft fur. Lucky was a miracle sent by the universe, and now I wanted to give that miracle to Win, hoping he could protect her in my place. I decided I would slip the $20,000 card under her door alongside him. If everything goes as planned, there will be no more entries, because tomorrow, I go to find Mom and Dad in another world. Dear diary, I will miss you. Lucky, I will watch over you. And Win, I will protect you always. Everyone watching the live broadcast thought the story ended there. But reporter Lenny instinctively flips to the very next page, and finds jagged, frantic handwriting stained with dried blood. His voice trembles violently as he continues to read. "I'm sorry, Lucky. I failed to keep you safe. Did Win think you belonged to someone else, or did she just not want you? I was hiding in the shadows, waiting for her to take you before I said goodbye forever. But you panicked, snapped your leash, and ran back toward me, straight into the road. If I had just placed you into Win's hands myself, would you still be breathing?" I collapsed on the pavement, sobbing and begging. "Please don't leave me, Lucky. Please." But he could barely lift his head. He let out one last soft cry, licked the tears off my face, and closed his eyes forever. I held his cold body close and sang to him softly through my broken sobs. "Good dog, good brave dog." I buried Lucky on the quiet hill right beside Mom and Dad's grave. Tonight, the moon isn't full, but it shines so brightly. I won't make it to the 15th. Lucky, slow down. I'm coming to find you right now. Mom, Dad, I'm coming. Win. Goodbye. Reporter Lenny finishes reading, his eyes overflowing with tears. The live comment section explodes into complete, grief-stricken chaos. Wait. Lucky is dead, and Nean is dead too? How could life be this cruel? Dying is one thing, but why kill the dog too? What did Lucky ever do? This is too much to handle. Is Nean actually dead, or is this still a stunt? Someone please tell me. Lenny chokes back a sob, his voice grave. According to police records and our own independent investigation, Nean passed away 5 years ago. This is not a performance. He was not faking. Please, show some decency in the comments. As for this diary, we will preserve it safely. We will not be answering any further questions. Thank you. Reporter Lenny cuts the live stream. Unsatisfied and desperate for answers, millions of viewers flood Win's social media accounts, swamping her pages with endless messages. The search traffic skyrockets until the top trending tags across the internet read, #CO Win Brother Nean is dead. #Nean's diary before death. #Is the diary real? Then, a new post drops. It's from Sunny, the woman mentioned in the journal. Nean is gone. I'm so sorry. He left without saying a word. I searched for him for so long, but I never found him. I failed him. If only I had dragged him to a doctor sooner, he wouldn't have left so early, and he wouldn't have suffered so much agony. People remain skeptical until Sunny uploads a photo. The boy in the picture, smiling so brightly and purely, is an exact match for the teenage photos of Nean. That is the exact moment the truth hits. The internet completely breaks down. Everyone finally accepts that every word in the diary was real. Emotional tags begin trending back to back. #Nean and Lucky we are bringing you home. #Nean and Lucky are you okay wherever you are. Back at the corporate office, Assistant Lenny stares at her phone for a long, silent moment. She hesitates, trembling, before finally speaking up. CO Win, 5 years ago, did you ever see a dog outside? A light golden one? Win looks up, puzzled, then slowly nods after remembering. The day I came home from the office, there was a small dog tied to the pillar outside the main entrance. Light golden fur, soft pink nose, spotless and adorable, clearly someone's beloved pet. Seeing it made me think of him. He always loved animals. I walked over and petted it. It was so gentle, wagging its tail the whole time. I figured the owner would come back for it, so I went inside. Not long after, I heard a loud commotion on the street. I looked out the window. There was a young man sitting in the middle of the road, holding that dog, crying his heart out. That must have been the owner. Apparently, the dog grew frantic looking for him, snapped its leash, ran into traffic, and was hit by a car. Lenny freezes. Right then, her phone buzzes with an incoming email. She looks down at the attached file, and her chest tightens so hard she can barely breathe. CO Win. I'm so sorry. I've been secretly investigating the diary and looking into what happened to your brother. He is really gone. The police registered his death 5 years ago. The death certificate is real. It cannot be forged. He took his own life, and every word of that diary is real. After saying this, Lenny couldn't bring herself to look Win in the eye. She tapped her screen, pulling up a series of classified files. Please, just read this. It's everything that happened to Nean. His diary was made public today, and I thought you deserved to know. She walked toward the door, stopping with her hand on the handle. Your brother, she added, her voice cracking softly, suffered so much more than anyone ever knew. Lenny stepped out and gently pulled the door shut. With the soft click of the latch, the outside world dissolved. The suffocating silence of the executive suite held only Win and the document in her hands, a file that weighed heavier than anything she had ever carried in her life. The air froze. The icy indifference Win had painstakingly maintained shattered instantly, like glass hitting stone. Her ice-cold fingertips trembled as they traced the rough, printed edges of the paper. Scene after scene from the live broadcast replayed inside her head. When reporter Lenny first brought out the journal, her chest had tightened with a strange, inexplicable dread. As the entries were read aloud, every suppressed emotion, the quiet doubts, the buried aches, and that single, agonizing line. I wanted to give Lucky to Win so he could keep her company. She had convinced herself it was all a fake sob story, just Nean's pathetic attempt at emotional blackmail. But now, every single word felt like a poisoned dagger plunging directly into her heart. With shaking hands, she finally pulled open the folder. The cover page was a copy of Nean's official death certificate, stark, sterile, and coldly formatted in black and white. Name Nean. Sex male. Date of death, autumn, 5 years ago, exactly 3 months after their final phone call. Cause of death, suicide by drug overdose. Location found, a secluded riverbank grove at the edge of the city, right beside their parents' final resting place. Status, discovered by a passerby at dawn. Remains unclaimed. Cremated per municipal protocol, ashes scattered. The word unclaimed struck her like a physical blow, leaving her breathless. What was she doing back then? She had been consumed by bitter hatred, convinced he had abandoned her for money. While he was dying alone in the dirt, she was sitting in high-end therapy clinics, forcing fake smiles at corporate banquets, never once stopping to check if her little brother was even alive. Flipping the page, her breath hitched. Attached were grainy crime scene photographs. A young man, hollow-cheeked and dangerously skeletal, sat slumped motionlessly against a gnarled tree trunk. He wore the oversized black coat and dark hat described in his diary. Scattered around his boots were dozens of empty prescription pill bottles. And clutched tightly against his chest, held in a final, frozen embrace, was a faded, threadbare stuffed brown bear. Win's vision blurred. She recognized it instantly, the 8th birthday present Mom had bought him. He had held onto it through the starvation, the homelessness, and the unbearable pain, all the way to his very last breath. There was one last photograph, the diary, lying open in the damp grass beside his cold body, its pages stained with rain. Wrapped in a plastic bag, carefully sealed, as if he feared the morning dew would ruin it. Even at the very end, he was desperately protecting this diary, the only sanctuary left where he could pour out his dying heart. Win's breath hitched, turning wild and erratic. Her vision blurred into a smear of tears. She slammed her hand over her mouth, but it couldn't suppress the shattered, agonizing wail that ripped through her chest. The tears she believed had run dry years ago flooded out now, scalding her skin like acid. "Nean!" she gasped, her voice so ragged and destroyed it barely sounded human. "My Nean!" It wasn't a sympathy play. It wasn't some pathetic sob story written for clout or money. He was truly dying. He was penniless, racked with unimaginable physical agony, completely abandoned by the world, and through every second of it, he was still protecting her. This sister who had failed him completely. He had hurled those cruel words on purpose. He had played the villain, pushing her away as coldly as possible, not because he didn't care, but because he loved her too much to let her watch him decay. He chose to absorb every insult, every ounce of hatred, and every excruciating second of pain alone, all to save her from the burden of his death. And she had fallen for his act completely. She had nursed bitter, venomous hatred for 5 long years. When she heard he might be dead, she had scoffed. "Even if he dies, I don't care." She had adopted another brother, frantically trying to fill the hollow void Nean left behind, never once trying to look past her own wounded pride. Now, the suffocating tide of remorse crushed her chest. Every word from their final phone call echoed like a death sentence inside her mind. She heard herself snarling at him. "I'll give you everything. Happy now? I should have never expected anything from you. Nean, you truly have no heart." Then she had severed the line and blocked him forever. How much did those poison words shatter him? Did he cough up another mouthful of blood in that filthy room? Did he clutch Lucky to his chest in the dark and sob until he suffocated? The grief she had locked away for half a decade finally shattered her throat. Win's legs buckled under the weight of her own sin. She slid from her leather chair, crumpling onto the hard floor, curling into a tight, pathetic ball like a lost child. She sobbed without restraint, a raw, gut-wrenching sound drenched in pure despair, irredeemable guilt, and a permanent, agonizing loss. She pounded her fists against the ground, her manicured nails digging violently into the thick carpet. I could have saved him. I could have recognized him. How did I not recognize my own little brother? That horrific memory tore at her mind like a jagged blade. That afternoon outside the clinic, that frail, ghost-like figure bundled in a black coat, hat, and mask, the stranger she had dismissed as a trashy paparazzo. That was Nean. He had looked straight into her eyes, pleading with his gaze, and she had walked past him without giving him a second glance. If only she had stopped. If only she had asked a single question. If only. But the world offers no second chances to the dead. Outside the heavy office doors, Lenny and the executive staff stood paralyzed in the quiet corridor, listening to the muffled, agonizing sounds of her complete breakdown. They exchanged heavy, heartbroken glances, eyes glistening with tears, but no one dared step inside. They all knew Win had to endure this. She had to swallow this brutal truth whole. Win cried until her vocal cords shredded, until her tear ducts burned completely dry. All that remained in the heavy, silent room was the violent trembling of her body, and the silent grief that can never die. Choking. She lies motionless on the cold floor, staring up at the chandelier with hollow, unseeing eyes, feeling as though every ounce of color has been drained from the world forever. The next day, Win never shows up at the office. Linny manages the most urgent corporate fires before driving to Wynn's villa that evening, her heart heavy with dread. Unlocking the front door with her spare key, she is instantly hit by the overpowering, acrid stench of hard liquor. The living room is an absolute disaster zone. Empty bottles lie overturned across the marble floor. Wynn is wedged into the far corner of the sofa, still wearing yesterday's crumpled work clothes. Her hair is a tangled mess, her eyes bloodshot and swollen, with dried tear tracks staining her cheeks. Through it all, her pale fingers remain locked around the printed copy of the diary in a death grip. "C.O. Wynn." Linny steps forward cautiously. Wynn slowly lifts her head. Her gaze is completely unfocused, taking a long, agonized moment to recognize her assistant's face. "Linny." Her voice is so raspy and broken it's barely a whisper. "Did he hate me? Tell me, did he hate me at the very end?" Lin Yi's heart shatters. She crouches beside the sofa and gently pries the empty bottle from Wynn's trembling hands. "C.O. Wynn, based on every single line in that journal, Nean never hated you. Right up until his final breath, all he ever wished for was your happiness." "Happiness?" Wynn lets out a shattered, hysterical laugh that turns into a sob. "I killed him! What right do I have to be happy?" She reaches frantically for another bottle, but Linny firmly blocks her hand. "C.O. Wynn, you cannot destroy yourself like this. If Nean saw you now, his soul wouldn't be at peace." "Nean." Wynn whimpers, fresh tears bursting through her swollen eyelids. He was so terrified of pain. How scared was he, dying all alone in the dark? Lucky wasn't even there to comfort him. He could only hold Mom's bear. Her voice collapses completely. She buries her face in her hands, weeping in agonizing silence. It takes every bit of strength Linny has to drag Wynn to her bedroom and coax a few sips of water down her throat. Wynn finally drifts into a restless, feverish sleep, her brows still twisted in agonizing pain. Linny lets out a long sigh. She knows Wynn is breaking, but with her like this, what becomes of the company? What becomes of her life? In the weeks that follow, Wynn becomes a ghost of her former self. She abandons the office, ignores every urgent board message, and locks herself inside the mansion, drowning in an endless sea of liquor. She desperately tries to numb the excruciating reality, but the alcohol only sharpens Nean's image in her mind, the little boy waddling behind her, calling her name in a soft, sweet voice, the awkward, stubborn teenager who fought her at every turn, and finally, that frail, skeletal shadow huddled in the freezing dark, clutching a dead dog, abandoned by the world. Her adopted brother, Yu, calls her on a video chat from abroad. Staring at the screen, at a boy whose face vaguely mirrors Nean's, but who has been spoiled by every luxury her vast wealth could buy, Wynn is suddenly struck by a wave of nauseating disgust and profound self-loathing. What had she been doing all these years? Trying to buy a cheap replacement for her own blood. It was cruel to you, and an unforgivable betrayal of Nean's memory. Losing all emotional control, she screams hysterically at the screen, terrifying the poor boy. Days later, she ruthlessly reorganizes Yu's life, enrolling him in an elite, exclusive boarding school overseas and locking up a multi-million-dollar trust fund in his name, ensuring he will be catered to for the rest of his life. She then opens her laptop, drafts a cold, final email to him, and severs all personal ties forever, closing the door on her fake family, leaving herself alone in the dark with her sins. She wrote only, "I'm sorry. I was never a good sister. Go live your own life." She severed all ties with this substitute, desperately hoping that cutting him out might repay even a fraction of the debt she owed her Rio brother. Without her leadership, the corporate empire began to crumble. Shareholders raged, and media outlets ran relentless headlines speculating that CEO Wynn had suffered a complete mental breakdown over personal tragedy. Linny worked until she was exhausted, but no one could pull Wynn out of the abyss of grief and self-hatred she had sunk into. The turning point arrived late one night. Wynn lay collapsed on the living room floor, semi-conscious from liquor. In the twilight haze between waking and sleep, a shadow shifted. Standing in the moonlight was Nean. He wore a crisp white shirt, and his smile was as radiant and pure as it had been when he was a boy. At his feet, Lucky trotted happily, his ringed tail wagging. "Wynn," the vision of Nean spoke, his voice impossibly gentle. "Please stop hurting yourself. Can you do that for me?" "Nean!" Wynn reached out with trembling hands, but her fingers grasped only empty air. Tears flooded her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. Please forgive me. I never blamed you." Nean's smile remained soft and warm. Seeing how far you've come. I'm so happy, Win. I'm so proud of you. Please live fully for both of us. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted. Nean. Win choked, her chest heaving with violent sobs. Promise me, Win. The vision began to dissolve into mist, his voice fading like a distant breeze. I promise. I promise you, Nean. Win cried out and jolted upright. Silence. The room was cold and empty. Pale moonlight spilled across the floorboards. There was no Nean, no dog, yet the encounter felt impossibly real, his words still reverberating through her soul. Grief crashed over her once more, heavy and crushing, but within the dark, something fundamental had shifted. A fragile, unbreakable spark lit inside her. Nean had prayed for her happiness until his very last breath, yet here she was, tearing her life apart. How much more would he weep, watching her destroy herself from beyond? She couldn't fail him again. She couldn't let his ultimate sacrifice be in vain. The next morning, Linny unlocked the villa door, her heart heavy with anxiety. But the moment she stepped inside, she froze. Win was already awake. She had showered, done her hair, and put on an immaculate, razor-sharp suit. Though her face remained pale and hollowed by grief, her eyes were no longer dead. They burned with a cold, terrifying clarity. A choice had been carved into her soul. Win's voice was raspy from weeks of screaming, but completely steady. Linny, book me the best private physician for a full medical evaluation. Then notify the board. Mandatory video conference at 2 o'clock. Linny gasped. CO Win, are you really? I'm fine. Win interrupted, her tone sharp as a blade. Her gaze turned toward the golden sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Or rather, I have to get better. For Nean. To fix what I broke. With an iron, terrifying resolve, Win rebuilt herself from the ash up. She followed every medical order, quit alcohol cold turkey, and forced her body to eat, sleep, and function. She threw herself back into the corporation, sharper, stricter, and more formidable than ever before. The market stabilized almost overnight, but anyone who knew her felt the chilling truth: the CO Win who possessed even a flicker of human warmth was gone forever. In her place stood a cold, brilliant machine, driven entirely by the memory of a ghost. Machine. Cold, relentless, as if only endless work could fill the void inside her. Yet beyond the boardroom, she began a quiet, obsessive search. She needed to trace every single step of Nean's final months, to bridge those 5 silent months when she had abandoned him to the dark. How did he survive? How did he live? Through Linny, she tracked down Sunny, the woman who had posted the photo online. They met in a secluded back room at a quiet cafe. Win studied her, street smart, rough around the edges, but fiercely genuine. Sunny met her gaze, her expression a complex mixture of pity and quiet relief. CO Win, you finally came. Sunny exhaled slowly. I tried reaching out to you years ago, but your staff blocked me at the front desk. I honestly thought you didn't give a damn about Nean. I do. Win's voice was barely a whisper, a subtle tremor breaking through the ice. I was just blind, a complete fool. Please, tell me everything. Sunny looked at the powerful billionaire across the table, seeing a woman hollowed out by a grief with no bottom. Her sharp edge softened. She began to speak. She took Win back to the grimy, cramped hostel room in the urban village. She spoke of Nean's gentle innocence, his quiet stubbornness, and how he would choke up blood into paper towels while stubbornly refusing a doctor. She described how she had to interrogate him before he finally confessed the truth: late-stage liver cancer. She told Win how she drained her entire life savings trying to buy his medicine. He was so gentle, so terrified of being a burden. Sunny's eyes brimmed with tears. He kept telling me I couldn't waste my hard-earned money on him, money I was saving to open my auto repair shop. When he slipped away, he took almost nothing, just a couple of shirts and that faded brown bear. I searched for him endlessly after that: hospitals, park benches, under highway bridges. But this city is the ocean. I couldn't find him. Sunny's voice cracked into a sob. If I had just held on to him, if I had dragged him to the emergency room myself. Win listened in total, agonizing silence, her fingernails digging so deeply into her palms that she drew blood, all while she was nursing bitter, venomous hatred. A complete stranger had given Nean the only real warmth he had left. A stranger had emptied her bank account and scoured the city streets trying to keep him alive. And she, his own sister, his only family, had slammed the door in his face. Win drew a long, shaky breath. "Thank you, Sonny. Thank you for holding his hand when he needed someone most. If there is anything you want, any dream, any amount of money, just say it." Sonny shook her head. "I don't want your money. I posted that picture because I wanted the world to know Nean was a sweet, noble kid. He didn't deserve any of the poison people spewed about him. See, Win, if you truly want to honor him, just live a good life. Don't let him have died for nothing." The words struck Win like a physical blow, a sharp echo of Nean's voice from her dream. She left the cafe and followed the directions Sonny had given her, driving straight to the rundown urban village where Nean had spent his final days. 5 years had passed, but the cramped alleyways remained frozen in time. The old neighborhood had been torn down and rebuilt. In place of the grimy alleyways, a sprawling modern shopping mall stood now. Win stood at the bustling intersection, trying to picture Nean surviving in a place like this, hiding in dark stairwells, forcing a smile over a few dollars from handing out flyers. Every thought was a jagged blade twisting in her chest. She visited the local supermarket, the open-air market, and finally, the small animal clinic Nean had written about. The clinic owner was still there. Win held out her phone, showing him a saved photo, Nean at 17, laughing freely before the world broke him. The owner studied the screen for a long moment, then shook his head softly. "So many faces pass through here every day. I'm sorry, I don't recall him." Win didn't give up. She described Lucky, a small, cream-colored stray with a scarred leg and a gentle soul. The owner's brow furrowed. Something flickered at the edge of his memory. "Maybe it rang a faint bell, but I can't remember the details." Refusing to stop, Win pulled every strings to track down the retired police officer who had processed Nean's scene 5 years ago. The officer remembered the case vividly. He drove Win out to the secluded grove by the river at the edge of the city, leading her down a dirt path until he pointed to a massive, ancient tree by the water's edge. "That boy," the officer let out a heavy sigh. "Just looking at him broke your heart." It was completely quiet. He looked like he was just resting. "We did a full investigation, no foul play. We read parts of the diary, too. It was his own choice. He didn't have much, just that worn stuffed bear, the notebook, and a little pocket cash. We posted a public notice searching for next of kin, but..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Win stood alone beneath the canopy. A gentle summer breeze rustled through the high leaves, filling the quiet with a soft, steady whisper. Sunlight filtered through the branches, scattering warm freckles of light across the grass. Below, the river flowed with a calm, eternal hum. Was this where Nean chose to rest because it was close to Mom and Dad? In those final, agonizing moments, staring up at these quiet trees, what went through his mind? Was he remembering Mom and Dad? Were we all together again in his thoughts? She crouched down on the soft earth, her fingers tracing the rough, weathered bark of the tree trunk, desperately trying to touch whatever lingering warmth he had left behind. Her tears fell without a sound, soaking straight into the soil. "Nean, I'm here," she whispered, her voice shattering into the wind. "I'm so sorry I was so late." Finally, Win made her way up the quiet hill where her parents rested. Beside their shared headstone, she found it, a small, humble mound of earth, almost hidden by time. Lucky's final resting place. The mound was covered in thick, vibrant green grass now, blooming with tiny yellow wildflowers. Kneeling in the grass, she meticulously pulled away every weed around the grave. Then, right beside Lucky, she buried a small, beautiful urn with her own hands. Inside were the ashes of Nean's original diary, which she had personally taken to be cremated so he could finally rest alongside his faithful companion. She rested her hands softly against the earth. Her hand rested gently on the small mound of earth. "Lucky," she whispered softly, "thank you for staying with Nean during his darkest days. Please keep staying by his side. Look after Mom and Dad too, okay?" When her quiet conversation with Lucky finished, Win turned to face her parents' shared tombstone. Staring at their warm, familiar smiles in the porcelain photographs, she bowed deeply 3 times. Her voice was steady, anchored by a newfound purpose. "Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry I failed to take care of Nean. But I promise you, from this day on, I will live for both of us. I will make sure his life and his sacrifice were not in vain." Returning to the city, Win made a sweeping move that stunned the corporate world. She summoned a major press conference and publicly declared that she was liquidating and transferring the majority of her personal fortune into a newly created charity, the Nean Lucky Foundation. The foundation was built around two vital pillars: pediatric oncology and mental health support, covering total treatment costs and psychological care for terminally ill children and teenagers from impoverished families, animal care and rescue operations, funding modern shelters, street animal rescues, and comprehensive rehabilitation programs. Standing before dozens of news cameras, Win spoke about her brother publicly for the very first time. She offered no grand dramatics, only quiet truth. In his final months, my brother Nean was sustained by the unexpected mercy of strangers. He knew the absolute fragility of life, and how cruel the world can feel when you are alone. This foundation was built to honor his memory, and to reach out to anyone currently walking that same lonely road. I want every struggling soul to experience gentleness, and every act of kindness to pass forward. The announcement sent shockwaves through the business community. The cynical headlines that once questioned her sanity melted away, replaced by profound public respect. The world finally saw the truth. Beneath the icy facade of CEO Win was a deeply wounded sister seeking a hard-earned redemption. Win threw herself into the foundation's daily operations. She personally audited every grant, spent hours sitting in hospital wards with young cancer patients, and visited shelters to sit on the floor alongside rescued dogs waiting for adoption. Occasionally, a flicker of genuine peace washed over her pale face. The shadow in her eyes never completely left, but she had learned how to live alongside her grief. During a visit to a pediatric hospital, she passed a room housing a young boy fighting late-stage liver cancer. Bald from aggressive chemotherapy, he looked up and gave her a wide, innocent smile. For a split second, Win saw a glimpse of Nean as a boy. She stepped into the room, gently stroked his head, and handed him a collectible toy motorcycle. Seeing his eyes light up sent a long-awaited wave of warmth through her frozen heart. She tried once more to help Sunny, offering to cover every expense to open her dream auto repair shop. But Sunny just laughed softly, shaking her head. CEO Win, I appreciate the gesture, I really do, Sunny said with a light-hearted smile. But I need to build that shop with my own hands. Besides, I'm doing just fine on my own. She's volunteering with the foundation now, leading our stray animal rescue teams, Sunny says softly, her fingers tracing the warm porcelain of her cup. It feels genuinely meaningful. Maybe this is what Nean would have wanted all along, all of us finding our own way to live well. Win doesn't push. She honors Sunny's independence, deeply grateful that fate placed someone so fiercely loyal beside her brother during his darkest hours. Back then, Sunny continues, her gaze drifting toward the rain-streaked window. He used to swear that plain steamed buns dipped in soy sauce were the absolute best thing on earth. I knew he was just starving, but every time he talked about it, his eyes lit up as if he were describing a 5-course feast. Win sits beside her in agonizing silence, her nails digging into her palms so hard they nearly break the skin, the only physical anchor keeping her from breaking down. These raw, living memories land with a force far more brutal than the written diary entries, each detail carving another deep cut into her heart. How Nean choked down stale, frozen buns with cold tap water in the dead of winter, how he curled into a tight ball on a bare mattress, trembling in agonizing pain without making a single sound. How Lucky pressed close on those freezing nights, gently licking the tears from his cheeks. She takes the original address from Sunny, the site of the old urban village, long since demolished and replaced by towering luxury high-rises. Win drives out alone, parks by the curb, and stares up at the glass towers for hours, trying to picture her frail, sick brother dragging his failing body through those vanished alleyways and holding on. At the office, the corporate empire runs smoothly under her direction, but her former cold, aggressive drive has quietly dissolved into a solemn resolve. She delegates responsibilities easily, no longer consumed by the desperate need to control everything. Employees remark that CEO Win emerged from her personal tragedy a gentler, more merciful leader. Only Lin Yi knows that Win has never truly found peace. In her private study, the worn, dog-eared copy of the diary sits beside an ever-growing stack of medical texts, detailed volumes on late-stage liver cancer, palliative oncology, and grief counseling. She is trapped in a perpetual research project, endlessly analyzing the brother she failed, desperately trying to replay and rewrite in her mind a past that can never be changed. 3 years passed since the diary live stream shook the entire country. The Nean Lucky Foundation has transformed thousands of lives, earning international acclaim and endless recognition. Then, on a dreary, rain-slicked afternoon, her private phone rings. It is Yu calling from abroad, his voice across the static line hesitant and laced with quiet anxiety. Win. I was going through some old storage boxes left at the estate overseas. I found a hidden photo album. It's full of pictures of Nean when he was little, and there's a note tucked inside. Some torn diary pages you wrote when you were young. You said, his voice hesitant over the static line. Things you never showed anyone. I read them, and I found something. Something you might have forgotten yourself. It's about the time right around when Mom and Dad died. Something blurry, like it was buried on purpose. The hand holding her phone trembled slightly. Outside, a gentle rain tapped incessantly against the glass, making her chest feel suffocatingly tight. Send everything back to me, Lynn requested softly. All of it. A few days later, the package arrived. Inside, beside the old photo album, lay a few yellowed, brittle diary pages written by a younger Win. The handwriting was rushed, jagged, and charged with raw emotion. It was from the night before their parents' fatal car accident. There had been a fierce, screaming argument at home over a major business decision. Their father had insisted on taking a dangerous financial risk, and her mother had backed him completely. But young Win had fought back with everything she had, ultimately shouting a line she never truly meant. You're going to ruin all of us. In the diary, she had filled the pages with bitter rage toward her parents' stubbornness and sheer terror about their future. The very last line read, If this family falls apart one day, it will be entirely their fault. Those words, buried under a decade of dust, acted like a rusted key forced violently into a lock she had intentionally sealed shut in her own mind. When collapsed into her chair, a cold sweat breaking out across her skin as the truth hit her. The day her parents had their accident, they had left in a hurry because of that fight. She hadn't even gone downstairs to see them off. In the overwhelming grief that followed, her mind had simply erased her own harshness, choosing only to remember her parents' love and her own helplessness. All these years, even while Nean was suffering alone, she had been carrying this buried, unacknowledged guilt about her parents' death. She had always believed Nean's death was a punishment for her failures as a sister, never realizing her subconscious was already crushed under the weight of those cruel words spoken so long ago, guilt stacked upon guilt, threatening to break her completely. She locked herself in the study for 2 full days. When she finally emerged, her face was pale, but her eyes held a quiet resolve. She looked at Linny and said softly, I need to go visit them. Nean, Lucky, Mom, and Dad. At the cemetery, Nean and Lucky's graves sat directly beside her parents' shared headstone, an arrangement Win had personally overseen. In the porcelain photograph, Nean was still 17, smiling his bright, open smile, with Lucky sitting obediently at his feet. Win stood in the fine drizzle wearing a simple black coat, refusing an umbrella. She stared at the photograph for a long time before slowly sinking to her knees in the wet grass. She didn't cry. Instead, she reached out her hand and gently wiped the rain from Nean's face with her fingers. Nean, she whispered into the quiet rain, I think I finally understand something. I always believed I lost you simply because I wasn't a good enough sister. But now I think it started much earlier. Our family was already being pushed down a hard road. Dad insisted on that gamble, Mom stood by him, and I was too terrified, too harsh. I was so impossibly stubborn back then. And your terrible illness, it all twisted together until it spiraled into an irredeemable nightmare. I was wrong, Nean. I was so young, hurling cruel words I should have carried to my grave. I was wrong for spending all those years blindly trying to build an empire instead of seeing through your fragile, beautiful lie. And I was wrong again after learning the truth, surrendering completely to self-destruction and nearly throwing away your very last wish. You begged me to be happy for the rest of my life. For so long, I thought that was a cruel joke. Without you, where was my happiness supposed to come from? She stops. Rain streams down her face, washing away the tears she can no longer hold back. But now, I want to try. I will keep pouring my soul into the Nean and Lucky Foundation for you. I will shelter every child walking down that same dark, lonely road. I will lead the company with actual purpose, turning it into something that heals instead of hurts. And I will try to accept my life as it stands today, including you. He hasn't had an easy road either. Nean, I may never fully forgive myself, but I promise I won't keep burying my living days alongside you. I will carry my love for you and live. Truly live. That's all you ever wanted from me, wasn't it? She leans forward, resting her forehead gently against the cold, wet stone, pressing close as if waiting for a silent, comforting whisper from the other side. The heavy drizzle finally tapers off. A single ray of golden afternoon sunlight breaks through the parting clouds, illuminating the fresh white chrysanthemums resting on the tomb. The raindrops resting on the delicate petals catch the light, glistening like polished glass. Win stands up slowly. She takes one last, lingering look at her brother's smiling face in the porcelain photograph, then turns and walks away. Her steps are no longer weighed down by heavy lead, still measured, but grounded, steady, and light. A cool breeze moves softly through the pine trees surrounding the graveyard, leaving a gentle rustle in the air like a quiet sigh of relief. This is where the story finally finds its breath, a narrative of grace, of hard-earned redemption, and of learning to walk forward while carrying deep wounds. Win's life has finally turned past its most agonizing chapter to begin writing the next, a story that will always harbor a quiet longing, but one that finally opens its doors to the light. Win's pace quietly transforms. She stays committed to her work, but the frantic, punishing obsession has completely dissolved. She begins seeing a therapist regularly, directly confronting the buried trauma surrounding her parents' accident and the suffocating guilt that had once poisoned her world. Healing isn't instant. There are heavy nights and painful setbacks, but she stays the course. Her relationship with you enters a new era as well. After receiving the old photo album and those long-forgotten diary pages, she dials his number herself for their first real, unreserved conversation across the ocean in years. She offers no defensive excuses for their turbulent past. Instead, she simply thanks him, deeply and genuinely, for safeguarding the precious fragments of Nean's memory that she had been too broken to keep. It was a hidden corner of her soul she had long since buried and forgotten. When spoke into the phone, her voice soft and free of its former coldness. She told you that she finally understood the deep isolation and uncertainty he must have carried growing up. She made it clear that regardless of blood ties, they were family, and she genuinely wanted to build a real future with him moving forward. "Take care of yourself, Win," you said quietly across the line before hanging up. Under Win's unwavering commitment and steady leadership, the Nean and Lucky Foundation continued to flourish. No longer satisfied with mere financial aid, she built a dedicated team of professional medical social workers to deliver compassionate therapy and palliative care to every family they served. At the foundation's annual gala, a young woman saved by the program took Win's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Miss Win, thank you. You and Nean gave me a second life." In that tender moment, what rose in Win's chest was more than simple gratitude. It was a deep, quiet sanctuary of peace. It felt as though Nean's life was continuing onward in another form. She still visited the cemetery, but no longer just to grieve. Sometimes she brought armfuls of sunflowers, Nean's absolute favorite. Other times she simply sat in the soft grass and talked, sharing updates about the foundation, complaining about a difficult day at work, speaking with the exact same easy warmth she used when Nean was still by her side. Once, she left a brand new toy in front of Lucky's small headstone. "Lucky," she whispered softly, "take care of him." Time flowed on like a steady river, and 2 more years passed. Following a major business forum one evening, Win crossed paths with a familiar face in the hotel lobby, reporter Lin, the man who had first uncovered the diary and hosted the national live stream that changed everything. He was a distinguished, widely respected figure in media now, with a touch of silver at his temples. He stepped forward with a gentle smile, a quietly searching look in his eyes. "CEO Win, it's been a long time." Win nodded politely. "Reporter Lin, good to see you." They sat together in the quiet hotel cafe. After a few courteous exchanges, reporter Lin hesitated before asking softly, "CEO Win, have you been all right these past few years?" Win stirred her coffee slowly, her gaze drifting toward the rain-slicked street outside. "I wouldn't say good," she said at last, "but not bad either. I've learned to make peace with myself, to live alongside the past. I suppose that's what growing up looks like. The cost was just extraordinarily high. That diary changed countless lives, including my own," reporter Lin said softly. "It taught me how fragile life is, and how much family truly weighs. I've wanted to find the right moment to formally say thank you, and to apologize for the brutal way the truth came to light." Win looked directly at him, her eyes clear and peaceful. "I'm the one who should be thanking you. You brought me Nean's final voice. It was excruciating, but without that diary, I might have spent the rest of my existence trapped inside a comfortable lie. That would have been the real injustice to him." A serene silence settled between them. Then, reporter Lin seemed to make up his mind. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a slightly yellowed, leather-bound notebook. A slightly yellowed manila envelope. Reporter Lin slides it gently across the table to Win. Win looks down at it, her fingers hesitating. "What is this?" When we were going through Nean's belongings, it was tucked away with the diary. Reporter Lin explained softly. At the time, I felt it wasn't the right moment, so I kept it safe. But now, I think it's time. Win's heart skips a beat. Taking a slow, steadying breath, she opens the envelope carefully. Inside is not a letter, but a drawing, its color slightly faded, the paper torn unevenly from a notebook. The scene is rendered with painstaking care in colored pencil, a bright blue sky, warm sunlight, and soft green grass. A young girl with a high ponytail wears a wide, joyful smile, clearly a younger Win, holding the hand of a small boy, Nean. Her other hand holds the leash of a cream-colored pup, Lucky. Behind them stand their mother and father, their faces beaming with happiness. In the top left corner, written in unsteady but earnest handwriting, reads, "My family. Author Nean, wish for Win to be happy forever." On the back of the drawing, one more line is scribbled, smaller, Messier, added later in darker ink, "Win, I'm sorry, and I love you." Tears instantly blur Win's vision. In her mind's eye, she can see him, a boy worn hollow by sickness, pushing through excruciating pain in his final days, drawing line by trembling line the reunion he longed for but could never have. There is no resentment in this drawing, only pure love and a soft apology. Win grips the thin paper as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. A tear slips down her cheek, falling onto the drawing. Panic seizing her, she immediately presses her fingertip to the droplet, gently blotting it away, terrified of smudging the final gift her brother left behind. "He never stopped thinking of me," Win whispers, to reporter Lin, and to herself. Reporter Lin nods silently, his own eyes brimming with tears. That night, Win has the drawing meticulously framed and hangs it in her study right beside Nean's diary. She stands before it for a very long time, taking in every single stroke. In the days that follow, Win remains the formidable CEO who commands the corporate world, and the driving force behind the Nean and Lucky Foundation. But deep inside her, a corner of her heart will always stay soft for that 18-year-old boy and his little dog. She no longer tries to escape the past, she chooses to carry it. She moves through the world wrapped in that heavy, beautiful love, living as fully as Nean always wished to see her alive. She knows the rainy seasons of life will inevitably return, but in her heart, she has raised a permanent, warm shelter for herself and for Nean. The story does not end in simple happiness, but it ends whole, scars and all. The drawing, "My Family," acts as a steady beam of light reaching into her coldest corners. It doesn't erase the grief, but it dissolves the sharp edge of her self-blame. Win realizes that Nean's legacy isn't just pain and regret, it is an enduring, unconditional love and a lasting blessing. And with that understanding, she finally finds the strength to truly begin again. Win began shaping her life with deliberate intention, extending that newfound care beyond her corporate duties. She picked up oil painting again, a long-lost comfort from her youth. Joining a quiet weekend studio class, the sharp, familiar scent of turpentine and the smooth glide of bristles across canvas brought a deep, meditative calm she hadn't felt in years. She painted sweeping landscapes and quiet, still lives, but never people, and never family. That drawing in her study was Nean's sacred space. She would never dare attempt to recreate it. Her relationship with you blossomed into something easy and natural. After graduating, you chose to return home, opting to forge his own path at a tech startup rather than joining the family empire, a choice Win deeply respected. When he hit inevitable career hurdles, she offered grounded perspective rather than corporate directives, guiding him as an experienced equal. They met for dinner regularly, sharing everyday triumphs and complaints like normal siblings. When you brought his girlfriend to meet her one evening, the young woman was visibly trembling with nerves. Win offered her a warm, disarming smile. "Be good to each other. Be patient with each other." In that brief, tender moment, Win caught a bittersweet glimpse of the alternate life that should have been, the simple sisterly joy of watching Nean grow up and navigate love. Meanwhile, the Nean and Lucky Foundation expanded its vision, partnering with the nation's premier medical institutions to fund early screening initiatives and targeted liver cancer research. Win didn't just write checks, she sat in on technical review meetings herself, offering the raw, essential human perspective of someone who had suffered that ultimate loss. During one presentation, a young researcher unveiled an early detection method that could raise diagnosis rates by 30%. Win's eyes burned as her mind instantly flashed to Nean, who was already at the final, irreversible stage when his truth was revealed. Pressing her palm hard against her thigh to suppress the wave of emotion, she resolved on the spot to double their research funding. Time moved steadily forward until one crisp autumn afternoon, when a sharp phone call shattered her routine. It was a care facility calling about Sunny. Miss Sunny collapsed, the nurse reported quietly. Years of relentless overwork have finally caught up with her, and her body is giving out. The situation is critical, and she's asking for you. Wynne cancelled her entire schedule and drove straight to the distant city. Inside the sterile hospital room, sharp with the smell of antiseptic, Sunny looked far frilier than Wynne remembered. Her face was pale and hollowed, yet her eyes retained that familiar, stubborn clarity. Seeing Wynne enter, she managed a weak, weary smile. "C.O. Wynne, you came." Wynne sat at the edge of the bed, gently wrapping her hands around Sunny's thin, cold fingers. "Don't call me C.O. Wynne. Just Wynne." Sunny shook her head faintly, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Old habits, and you really are C.O. Wynne." She paused, her eyes searching Wynne's face with urgent intensity. "I don't have much time left. There's something I've been keeping, something I need to tell you before I go. It's been a long time, but I think you need to hear it," Sunny said, her voice fragile as paper. Wynne's chest tightened instantly. "Tell me." Sunny's gaze drifted toward the rain-streaked window, reaching back into the fading past. "Before Nean passed, he left a message for you. Not in the diary. That day, he was in a terrible state, drifting in and out as the pain consumed him. But he grabbed my hand with whatever strength he had left and whispered, 'Sunny, if Wynne ever finds out the truth, please tell her something for me.'" Sunny paused, her breathing growing shallow and labored. Wynne reached for a glass of water on the nightstand, but Sunny feebly waved it away. She needed to finish. He said, "Tell her not to grieve too long. Tell her to find someone to walk beside her. Don't let her end up alone the way Mom and Dad left her. And make sure she eats something warm every day." Sunny's voice dissolved into a soft whisper. Wynne's tears fell in absolute silence, hot against her cheeks. "Don't grieve too long. Find someone. Eat something warm every day." These were his final, tender worries for her, not for his own pain, but for her quiet living days. Wynne buried her face in Sunny's frail hand, her voice finally breaking into a sob. "That foolish kid. He never blamed you for anything, Wynne," Sunny murmured, her eyes gently fluttering shut. "He always said his sister was the greatest sister in the world." A few days later, Sunny passed away peacefully. Wynne arranged for her to be laid to rest right beside Nean and Lucky, placing a bright bouquet of sunflowers over the fresh earth. Returning home, Wynne began taking her daily life seriously. She hired a cook to prepare real, home-style meals and slow-simmered soups, even taking the time to learn simple recipes herself. The quiet warmth of the kitchen settled a deep, aching emptiness inside her chest. "One evening you called," his voice vibrant with excitement across the line. "Wynne! The project succeeded!" Listening to his joyful chatter, the corner of Wynne's mouth lifted into a genuine, unforced smile. She walked into her study and looked at the My Family drawing. This time, there were no tears. Instead, she made a silent promise to the paper. "I will live well. I will carry your love with me." Her cemetery visits slowly shifted, no longer heavy pilgrimages of guilt, but peaceful visits with old friends. She brought a warm thermos of tea, sitting on the grass to share life updates. Eventually, she moved the framed drawing to her bedroom nightstand, a daily sanctuary reminding her that love never truly leaves. The Nean Lucky Foundation flourished, uniting hundreds of thousands of supporters. Its early cancer screening initiatives saved countless lives, and with every family spared from tragedy, the old regret in Wynne's chest grew lighter, dissolving into purpose. At an international charity forum, a keynote speaker remarked that the foundation embodied a profound truth: honoring those who are gone is how we learn to deeply treasure the living. Wynne smiled, a quiet, radiant smile. "That is the path I walk," she murmured softly. Years rolled on like a steady river. Yu's tech startup prospered, earning him widespread respect in the industry. He brought his girlfriend, Vivian, to dinner once more. Vivian prepared a rich, home-cooked braised pork that somehow carried the unmistakable echo of their mother's old recipe. Something warm and deeply nostalgic stirred in Wynne's chest as she watched them laugh. A decade passed in this gentle rhythm. Silver threads touched Wynne's temples, and her eyes grew quieter, deeper, and profoundly serene. She stepped back from daily corporate operations to focus entirely on high-level strategy and expanding the foundation's reach. She transformed her private garden into a quiet sanctuary filled with golden sunflowers and pristine white chrysanthemums. Then, one quiet morning, a renowned documentary director reached out, asking for permission to capture the story of Nean, Lucky, and the enduring legacy they left behind. Tell the story of the Nean and Lucky Foundation, the director requested. Wynn considers it carefully before offering her consent, on one absolute condition: it must be unvarnished and honest. The narrative must remain rooted in the Foundation's mission, not romanticized as her personal drama. Before the camera, she appears poised, articulate, and deeply serene. When the director leans in and asks, "How did you manage to move past such profound darkness?" she gently shakes her head. "I didn't move past it," she says softly. "I learned to carry it. The people we love become a permanent part of who we are." The Nean and Lucky Foundation isn't about escaping grief. It's about carrying that love forward and transforming sorrow into life. The documentary resonates across the globe, leaving an indelible mark. Her journey transforms into a quiet beacon for anyone seeking to rebuild after being broken. At Yu's wedding years later, Wynn watches the radiant couple exchange vows at the altar. She turns her head slightly toward the empty chair she had quietly reserved beside her for Nean. "Some people can't be here in person," she whispers to the empty space, "but they are so deeply happy for us. Be happy, Wynn." The silent echo of her brother's wish warms her soul. In time, Wynn embraces the warmth of becoming a grandmother, cradling tiny Quinn in her arms. The child's bright, animated eyes are a breathtaking mirror of Nean's in her memory. Pushing the stroller along the garden path lined with vibrant, golden petals, she points to the blooms. "This is your great-uncle Nean, and this is Lucky," she whispers. "They both love you so very much." When Quinn turns 3, she chirps, "Grandma Wynn," in a melodic, crystal-clear voice that washes over Wynn like pure morning light. Wynn pours her afternoons into reading fairy tales to the little girl, nurturing her innocence while keeping the heavier burdens of history far out of reach. Under her enduring legacy, the family enterprise matures into a celebrated industry benchmark, while the Nean and Lucky Foundation flourishes into a worldwide haven of hope. Wynn gradually relinquishes her corporate duties entirely, content to tend her garden and observe the quiet beauty of flowers blooming and falling through the seasons. One crisp evening, Quinn points up at the twilight sky. "Grandma Wynn, look at that star. It's so bright." Wynn smiles gently, wrapping her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. "Maybe that's your great-uncle Nean, keeping watch over all of us." On Wynn's 70th birthday, Yu presents her with a beautifully crafted, handmade album. The opening page holds My Family, Nean's cherished original drawing, set alongside Quinn's neat child handwriting: great-grandpa, great-grandma, great-uncle Nean, Lucky, and us. The final pages remain blank, accompanied by a handwritten note from Yu. "The days ahead, we will fill them in together." Wynn traces her trembling fingertips across the pages. Though tears brim in her eyes, a radiant smile lights her face. The gift speaks a truth that heals the last remaining shadow in her heart. Nean was never erased. He had been woven forever into the living fabric of their family. In her final years, she meticulously catalogs her old keepsakes, labeling each story and photograph so Quinn will always understand the roots of her family's strength. When her time lastly arrives, the visionary leader who devoted her living days to lifting others passes away in deep, unconditional tranquility. Her final words slip out through gentle tears. "Mom, Dad, Nean, you've come for me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't take care of Nean the way I should have." No one in the room had ever seen the formidable CEO shed such raw tears. But as her breath stilled into everlasting stillness, when rested in absolute peace, her features settled in the soft, joyous smile of a child finally coming home.